Got a question coming in here from Lucas Abner. Are Clemson's defensive backs as good as Northwestern's? Can they shut down Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson?
Considering they all 5 stars, yeah. I mean, I don't know what's going on.
Northwestern's got a good secondary. Now, the one defense I'm going to make for the question there, no, I am not comparing Northwestern's talent on defense, especially in the secondary, with Clemson's, but they really can play. And as we all know, the productivity on the field doesn't always equal the recruiting rankings, especially when you're talking about Northwestern. So they have a good defensive backfield. But regardless, Ohio State's wide receivers, which are deep and talented against Clemson's secondary.
And Olave and Wilson didn't play versus Northwestern, if I'm not mistaken,
no,
right?
Did not play.
Yeah, Olave did?
No.
Did not play.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, Kendrick is going to be a first-round pick, made first-team ACC. Booth, who's in and out of the lineup, was a 5-star player, and he barely plays, and he was second-team ACC. So, to me, I think they can match up with him.
I don't know if I can remember the last time this season, and this is not a Clemson problem. This is a problem that's happening throughout college football because of COVID and injuries combined. When's the last time we had both Booth and Kendrick and Turner, or all 3 of those guys on the field at the same time during a game? I can't really remember. Maybe a mid-season. Does anybody know? It's been a while.
Wake Forest, the first game of the year.
Yeah, maybe so.
And we're not going to see it this week because Turner's out for the first half anyway because of the targeting call in the ACC championship, and I believe that's a big deal in this game. Certainly in the first, if Clemson can get away unscathed, and when I say unscathed, I mean not giving up 3 touchdowns in the air because Turner's out, then I think it's going to that's going to work in Clemson's favor. But we will definitely see Ryan Day and the Ohio State offensive staff try to exploit mismatches when Turner is off the field. And I don't blame him, because if you look at the depth chart behind him at safety, it's not very good. So you have Charleston next in line, and then the third guy is Tyler Venables, who's a true freshman, Brent Venables' son. So Turner is our base free safety. And after that, it's a huge drop off.
Yeah. I'm going to further explain my last comment about Clemson's secondary. I don't know a whole lot about Clemson's secondary or how well they're playing right now, so I'm not evaluating their secondary. I'll put it this way. Northwestern has better secondary than Ohio State. They're not as athletically gifted, talented, don't have the recruiting rankings next to the names, but Northwestern has better secondary than Ohio State. At least they're performing better and have this year than Ohio State secondary. So that was the only clarification I was making there.
I can't wait to see this matchup with Breezy Davis going against the peak of Ohio State. Because last year, I thought Ohio State out physical us. It's going to be interesting because they already got a taste of how a good offensive line plays in Notre Dame. I want to see that matchup. That's going to be nasty. If you like old school football, Ohio State, the offensive line versus Clemson's defensive line, that's going to be nasty, man. If you love football, that's what it's going to be at.
Well, Brian, you started there. Whoever wants to jump in, is Clemson better today than they were at this point last year? Which team was better?
Oh, this is a good question. At the beginning of the season, Clemson was not as good as they were last year. Now I think that they are. And this is the big question, and this is the big debate about the whole Dabo Swinney comments and who has the actual advantage here by playing 6 games versus 11 games. Right? This is the debate. Is it a disadvantage to play 6 games versus 11? I think that Ohio State is at a disadvantage by playing only 6 games this year. And if you just look at their roster and Clemson's, look at the players that they lost on defense, both teams, to the NFL in 2020. Clemson is a completely different team defensively now than they were on September 1. We've seen it. And you can just look at the roster. It's loaded with freshmen and sophomores. Those reps were imperative to Clemson. If this game between Clemson and Ohio State was being played 6 or 8 weeks ago, I think this is a much more dangerous game for Clemson to lose than it is today. And now I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know Ohio State's roster as good as I do Clemson's, but I'm just from what I'm seeing in the few games that they have played, is that they are lacking experience as well. They haven't had a chance to gel. Now, is this Ohio State's fault? Of course, it's not their fault. It's the Big Ten's fault for bowing out early in the season and not giving them 8, 9, 10, 11 games to play. But it is what it is, and I think that actually benefits Clemson going into this game. Offensively, I think Clemson is better than they were last year. I think they're more explosive, even though, and again, if you would have told me 2 months ago that you're not going to have Justin Ross, you're not going to have Frank Ladson, you're not going to have Joe Ngata, 3 starting receivers, and you would tell me that the offense is going to be even more explosive than it was last year, I would have called you a liar. But that has been the case. And I think that's been the maturation of Trevor Lawrence. I think it's been the maturation of Travis Etienne. Even though Etienne's numbers don't reflect that on the ground, he's a better, more well-rounded player in the passing game and the blocking and the quarterback blocking. So and the run blocking. So I think Clemson's a slightly better team than they were last year, and I'm not sure that you can say about the same about Ohio State. But again, I'm clearly biased and somewhat ignorant on the subject as far as the full roster of Ohio State goes.
I don't think Clemson's offensive line is as good as it was last year, but those guys were really good. I mean, I just I don't think Ohio State has the defensive line they had last year. I don't think Clemson's good as it was on the offensive line last year. I need to see more push up the front. We played better against Notre Dame, but we struggled to run the ball this year, mainly because they kept 6 or 7, 8-man boxes against Clemson this year. So we didn't have that tall receiver going down the field. But Cornell Powell, man, he done stepped up. I mean, we've been waiting 5 years to see this dude step up like he has, and he's did a good job. But I don't think our offensive line is good. But I think offensively, yeah, we're better in certain ways, but I don't think our offensive line is that good like what last year.
I think it's a progression because we saw the numbers that Clemson put up last year offensively, and Pete, we talked about it several times. How people were saying, "Oh, their numbers." Statistically, Clemson's numbers were better last year offensively than they were the year before when they won the national championship in certain areas. But that's not what I worry about, because I was getting kicked in the nuts week in and week out by Clemson fans telling me, you don't know what you're talking about, when I said over and over and over that Clemson was not hungry enough. And then they got into a game where they played a team who had a ton of talent, once-in-a-lifetime talent, coaching that was just coaching at an above elite level. And it exposed their lack of preparation and their lack of hunger. And preparation and hunger there's a correlation there. But what I saw the other night when they played Notre Dame was not a team that came out with a bunch of talent and they were just trying to get back at Notre Dame. That team came out and they had something to say. They had something to say that we're hungry. We want the national championship. We're just not going to look at each other and go, he's good and he's good and he's good and he's good and he's a number 1 draft. They're not going to do that. They're going to come in. They were hungry the other night. So I believe that hunger is what is the difference. And I believe that it will carry us through a win this week, and barring injury. And I've had people say, well, that's your out just in case they lose. No, that's the ABCs of football, moron. Health is one of the cornerstones of any football team. But as long as they stay healthy, I believe this team stands a great chance of winning the national championship.
Ohio State's flat out not as good as they were last year for 2 basic reasons. They don't have the top end talent. So like Clemson, we're talking of 2 of the 4 programs in the country. They can lose a bunch of NFL talent and replace them with just as many stars in the recruiting rankings, but that doesn't mean the players are good. They haven't proven it at that level. And Chase Young was the best pass rusher in the country last year. He's gone. He hasn't been replaced. He's been replaced by guys that were recruited just as heavily as he was, but they're not as productive. They're good players, but they're a step away from where he was in getting to the quarterback. Jeffrey Okudah was arguably the best cornerback in the country. When you take tackling into consideration, he was, and that's why he was one of the 3 top players selected in the NFL draft. As a cover corner, he was arguably the best. He's gone. He's not been replaced. J.K. Dobbins plays right now in the NFL like a first rounder. He was not a first rounder, but he hasn't been replaced. Now, Trey Sermon had a great game against Northwestern with 331 on the ground, but the four of us could have probably about 20. Like Ohio State's offensive line was just clearing gaps, that Mack trucks could drive through. So I don't know that Trey Sermon, he's not J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, that's the biggest question I think Ohio State has coming to the game, because who's going to guard I can't remember. I can't think right. Rogers right now, because Rogers plays the slot and Wade guards out on the boundary. So who's going to guard? And that's one of the problems that Ohio State is having. And then another question is the decision making that Justin Fields did last year, where he had 38 touchdowns with 1 interception, and this year he has 8 interceptions. So it's going to be amazing to see how he's going to adjust, and he has a hurt finger for this game.